Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, all you dregs to society, all you rock dwellers, all you sycophants, all you stinkos, especially all you hateful people who celebrate the president and honor America. You're always welcome here, and this is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, and joining me as my co-host over the telephone, we couldn't make video work for this gentleman, but Rick Manning is joining us today as a co-host. Rick is the president of Americans for Limited Government. And Rick, I want to thank you for sitting in today. It's always great to have you on with us.
Yeah, I love being on. It's being a former regular host on Conservative Commandos, it's always great when I get an opportunity to be back on and join the team.
Well, we always love having you on. And, you know, Rick, I say all the time, once a conservative commando, always a conservative commando. Rick, let's talk a little bit about China, the U.S., our economies, and intertwining our economies. And maybe it's time to undo that knot. Maybe it's time to undo those braids between our economies.
Yeah, I think it absolutely is. What we know now is that China has been engaged in a Cold War against us, even as we attempted to engage them economically. And, you know, we see so many instances where the intertwining of our economies has worked to the detriment of America, both with intellectual property theft, with essentially the undermining of our industries. The sucking sound that Ross Perot talked about for NAFTA actually ended up going across the Pacific Ocean to China. And so there's been an economic attack. There's been really a cultural attack as they've put their Confucius Institutes into our schools to try to influence Sino-American policy. And there's a top-down attack as people, the Silicon Valley people and other big businesses are so encumbered by trying to get in, or enamored in terms of trying to get at the Chinese marketplace, that they will virtually become spokespeople and lobbyists for the Chinese government. So we have a responsibility for our own country's survival to take China on directly and to start divesting our interests from Chinese interests. And so that's what I've been working on quite a bit.
Well, Rick, one thing that has alarmed me for quite some time is the buildup of the Chinese military, and it's been done with American dollars. It's every time we buy anything that comes from China, and it's hard not to these days, every time we buy anything that comes from China, we are pumping money into that country. And by and large, that country has been taking that money and building up their military. I mean, the threats that they have made in the South China Sea, where they've actually created a military island there, how they've built up their Navy, it's very alarming, Rick. And it's been bought with the American dollar.
It absolutely has all been bought with the American dollar, and quite honestly, it's probably been built with U.S. technology. The Chinese have been, they were able to build stealth technology, ships and planes, using technology that was stolen directly out of our labs, our basic research labs. And as a result of that, they didn't take 20, 25 years, 30 years to figure it out. They got our technology, they got our blueprints, and then they duplicated them. And because of that, and here's the real threat to this, since they know how our machinery works, they know how to defeat it. That's why anytime a stealth plane goes down in foreign lands, we get so concerned about it. That's when we have a plane go down in the sea, we want to recover it first because we do not want the enemy to recover it to study it. And yet they've through intellectual property theft have stolen the plans. What's worse is that I've been told, and I haven't done a part-by-part description, but I've been told by a former brigadier general in the Air Force, retired, that 35% of the parts in the F-35 fighter plane are latest and greatest, our best technology in the air. The thing we're dependent upon to have air dominance, 35% of the parts are made in China.
That's incredible. It's incredibly stupid, Rick, to allow that to happen. I
It
mean,
is incredibly
they
stupid.
are a real threat to us. They are a real threat to us. Could I say, and would I be correct in saying almost as great a threat as the Soviet Union was to us through the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s?
I
It's not
think
taking
in
it
many
too far.
respects, no, well, and we have the benefit of hindsight, and having lived through much of that time, I know that the Soviet threat was real, and it was felt. And the difference between the Chinese threat and the Soviet threat is we knew as Americans that the Soviets had nuclear weapons pointed at us and were threatening us all over. We knew that we had forces facing each other in Europe every single day. So we knew that. We saw the threat. And the Chinese threat's much more subtle because we don't have forces that are facing off against one another overtly. But from a spy versus spy standpoint, China is engaged in massive cyber attacks on our entire country in terms of trying to both infiltrate our defense systems and steal technology. They're engaged in using things like TikTok, which is a Chinese app, and it's a Chinese app that was developed by the Communist Party, and trying to get massive amounts of personal data on people. And as they get personal data on people, that gives them the ability to manipulate them unwillingly. The people won't know they're being manipulated, but that personal data is extraordinarily valuable in terms of knowing what people's behavior, knowing what their hot buttons are, and utilizing those things to try to influence their thinking without even somebody knowing that's happening in a stealth way. So we're in a cold war with China. They're fighting it, and we're not, because we had up until Donald Trump became president, we didn't recognize it was there.
Rick, another avenue we have to talk about. There are a lot of Americans that are invested in Chinese companies. Maybe it's also time for a divestment of those investments in Chinese companies.
Yeah, and Rick, you're exactly right. Here's what's really true is most people don't even realize they're invested in Chinese companies. They don't realize that they are invested in companies that are using child and slave labor to make the products that they're profiting off of. And let's just be clear: if you are profiting off of somebody who's using child and slave labor, then you are profiting off of slavery, and they have essentially turned you into a slave owner. And they're doing this through your retirement accounts, whether it's a 401k where you a balanced fund, which puts you into an emerging markets fund, which is 30 to 50% Chinese. It's it could be a pension fund that exists that you have. If you're a union member, multi-employer pension fund, which has investments in China to try to make the return on investment and assets, and they're invested in China. And once again, they're invested in companies that are designed by the Chinese government to try to build things that are going to kill us and are going to kill our military. The U.S. government was so concerned about this that they stopped the federal employees' 401k program known as the Thrift Savings Plan. They stopped them from investing in Chinese assets, which they wanted to do just recently.
Rick, I got to ask you, how did we get in such a quagmire with the Chinese? How did that all happen?
Well,
we not have enough time in this show or any show to talk about.
Well, I'll give you the short answer. Yeah, I'll give you the short answer. The short answer is we decided we were going to provide China with a most favored nation status, which later became known as permanent normalized trade relations, and that happened in early 2001. And when we did that, it opened the door for every multinational based in the United States to become invested in China and have their intellectual property stolen by China. And so our companies were chasing the Chinese consumer. There's a lot of them, and so they're chasing the Chinese consumer, and in doing so, they essentially sold their souls to the Chinese government because that was the price of entry into the marketplace, and that was the beginning of the problem. And the reason that there's such
go ahead.
Go. Yeah, the reason that there's such a
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, the reason that there's such animus towards Donald Trump is he's upended the apple cart related to that and started calling the relationship between the United States and China for what it is, which is not an equitable relationship. In fact, it's damaging and harmful to the United States. And by doing that and trying to rebalance those scales, he's threatened essentially the entire philosophical underpinning of the globalist agenda. And in doing so, he's made enemies of a lot of people who it really surprises Americans that people on Wall Street far prefer the socialists than they do Donald Trump.
All right. Hey, Rick, we got to go to a break, and on the other side of the break, I want to tell you about three great guests that will be joining us here today on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and that's what you're listening to and watching. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today, guest co-host, is Rick Manning. Rick is the president of Americans for Limited Government, and today's show, like all our shows, is brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. Don't go away. Rick and I will be right back, and we'll let you know who our guests are and the topics for our conversations. Be right back.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning, president of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And we've got three great guests that will be joining us here on Conservative Commandos. First, we're going to have Trent England. Trent is the executive director of the organization Save Our States, discussing breaking faith with the Electoral College. And we're also going to have George Parry join us, and George is a contributor for the American Spectator, the Federalist, and the Philadelphia Inquirer, discussing the social media whack-a-mole with America's frontline doctors. We're also going to have Shaun Flanagan join us. He is the director of the Center for Metrics at the Legatham Institute in London, England, joining us from the other side of the pond. So, Rick Manning, I wanted to discuss with you and then broaden this topic about a Rasmussen poll. Just released a poll of 1,000 Americans, which indicates that Americans are sending more negative signals than positive ones over the decision by many professional sports organizations and athletes to promote Black Lives Matter. And Rick, more than 30% of American adults are less likely to watch sporting events that promote Black Lives Matter versus 21% who are more likely to do so. Rick, where do you stand on that? Have you been watching the NBA with the social justice mottos on the back of their uniforms? Or have you been watching the baseball games where the teams kneel at our national anthem?
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised at the Rasmussen poll, and I'm not surprised at it for a simple reason. People, regardless of their political affiliation, tune into sports as a diversion. It's supposed
Amen.
to be different, and so you're just, it's mindless occupation of your brain on something that, in the overall scheme of things, doesn't matter, even though we put a great deal of emotional energy into it. And when we discover that, and the athletes, when they're relatively anonymous, are easy to root for because you're rooting for whatever they do on the field. Mm-hmm. People during the 50s didn't know a lot about Joe DiMaggio. People in the 30s didn't know a lot about Babe Ruth. There were rumors, and they were over-the-top rumors, and kind of almost making him, shall we say, Ruthian. But the fact is, people didn't see the dark sides of things. And with what the Rasmussen poll is showing is that the more we know about what these guys personally think, the less we care about what they do on the field, and the less we want to watch them.
The less we like them, Rick. The less we
That's
like
exactly
them.
Right.
And
Rick, it's particularly interesting. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the national anthem. When they kneel for the national anthem, that's dividing us, Rick. It's really dividing us. And I would think the one place that we could come together and agree, one thing we can agree on would be our flag and our national anthem. And use that as maybe a common link to work out other problems. But no, Rick, they've made that divisive. They really have. Do you remember 9/11, Rick?
I do remember
how we
9/11.
went through that. That was a horrible, horrible time in our lives. And there was about a week to 10 days where America was at a standstill. And one of the things that happened, it was kind of like removing this cloud from us, was the resumption of baseball. I remember Larry Bowa, and he was the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies, standing there and bawling like a baby when their national anthem was played. The Phillies Mets was the first game that was played in New York. Larry Bowa bawled like a baby, and we all wanted to cry. And Rick, coming out of this Chinese flu, this Chinese virus, this shutdown, you would think the one thing that would unify people is getting baseball back. But they've even dirtied that now, Rick.
Yeah, it's sad. I remember, I think it's 1978, when some clowns jumped onto the center field, and from the stands, they had an American flag, they had lighter fluid, they were attempting to light the American flag on fire. Vince Scully had a call of this, almost like it was play-by-play. Rick Monday, who was playing for the Phillies, or for the Cubs at that time, ran from his center field position, grabbed the flag from these two bozos, and got a standing ovation in Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. Get a standing ovation. And today, one wonders if Rick Monday would be booed for doing the exact same thing in Dodger Stadium, because today, to the left, the American flag has been turned into a symbol of oppression rather than freedom. And it is the Orwellian world that we live in, where our freedom has been defined as evil, and essentially slavery has been defined as good. That's what we're looking at. And quite honestly, if we do not fix this, our country is dead. And I'll give you a simple way to fix it. In school, they don't say the Pledge of Allegiance anymore. And anybody who's in a rural area, in a conservative area, should tell your school board that you want the Pledge of Allegiance said again. It's about 20 seconds. And teachers say, oh, we just don't have time for that. Well, I'm sorry. Say the Pledge of Allegiance, and oh, by the way, you might even sing a patriotic song afterwards, and get kids to begin to realize that this is the greatest country on earth, and that's the truth. And unless we start having our children understand that from a very early age, they're susceptible to those who would teach them the opposite, who would teach them to hate the very country that has allowed them to be so prosperous.
Hey, Rick, did you realize that incident with Rick Mundy racing over, picking up that flag, saving it from being burnt, was voted one of the 10 greatest things that ever happened in Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I was aware of that, and it's when you think of all the things that have happened in Major League Baseball,
all the great things,
all the great things that have happened in Major League Baseball, and only 9 of them are from Mike Trout. You have okay, I'm a Trout fan.
You know how to hurt a Phillies fan, don't you?
Yeah, we'll take the jersey away out of Jersey anytime from you. But it's a sign that people understood in their hearts. They understood that this was protecting America. Baseball, apple pie, and baseball. Kind of Americana. And Rick Mundy protected that. And he goes down, you wouldn't remember, but Rick Mundy was a pretty darn good baseball player. He wasn't a Hall of Fame, but he was just below that level.
He was
the one thing
damn good player.
And the one thing he goes down in history for is a patriotic act.
Well, Rick, it makes me sick for the opening act of bringing baseball back to America after this Chinese virus, to see the New York Yankees of all teams. And if there's one baseball team that's America's team, it's the New York Yankees. To see every stinking member, and I mean every stinking member of the New York Yankees, kneel at the national anthem. I hate
And they
them.
were joined by, I understand that. I always rooted for the Washington Senators and damn Yankees, and they never, except for at the end, Joe Hardy did well. But it was the fact is the Washington Nationals, who represent the nation's capital, kneeled as well. And and they put BLM on the back of the mound. And when I found out they were going to do that, I am the biggest baseball fan in the world. Okay. There may be others who are bigger baseball fans, but I haven't met them. And I said goodbye. And I canceled all of my memberships. I canceled my membership to MLB TV so I could watch games. I canceled my, subscriptions to sporting publications that were on, general sports, but I generally had them for baseball. I don't even know how Mike Trout is doing this year. No idea. I don't know what the Angels' record is. No idea. Because I've decided that I'm not going to expose myself to them at all, because every time you take a click and look at something in baseball gets $1. And I'm not going to give them anything, any clicks. I'm not going to give them eyeballs. I'm not going to give them nada. Because when they did that, they said, I hate you and everything you stand for. And I won't give money to people who hate me.
No, I won't either. Hey, Rick, we got to go because we got a hard break coming up. And on the other side, we're going to be speaking with Trent England. Trent is the executive director of Save Our States, talking about breaking faith with the Electoral College. You are listening to and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning. Rick is the president and CEO of Americans for Limited Government. I almost said Frontiers of Freedom. Our friend George Landreth there. And coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. Don't go away. We'll be right back with our first guest.
Mom, thank God you're going to be okay.
So relieved. But you both should know when my time comes, I have a final expense policy with Senior Care USA.
Is Senior Care USA the life insurance policy that helps loved ones pay for funeral expenses and other debts? Bill and I called to get more information.
Yes, and there's an immediate payout of up to $50,000.
If you're over 50, call Senior Care USA now to learn more about final expense insurance plans.
There's no medical exam, even if you have a pre-existing condition like I do. When I called, the quote was free, and there was no pressure.
I found out that policies start for as little as 35 cents a day. Rates will never increase and coverage won't decrease.
I'm going to call today.
Ask about the free prescription discount card. Oh, I'm so glad you'll be taken care of.
Call 1-800-822-7419. That's 1-800-822-7419.
But is it? It's really just the beginning, right? Have you written a book and want it published but don't know where to start? You're not alone. Page Publishing cuts through the confusion that most new authors face, like copyright protection, barcodes, printing, and digital uploading. We will get your book into bookstores now. We guide you through the publishing maze and help you distribute and sell your work in hard copy and ebook formats. That's right. We will digitize and place your book for sale on Amazon, Apple iBooks, and Google, offering it to millions. Don't waste another minute. Most publishers won't even look at new author submissions, but we're different. We review your book and provide you feedback in about a week. If we decide to publish your book, your work ends and ours begins. From copy editing and proofing to typesetting and book cover art, our team gets you into bookstores fast.
Call 1-877-461-5033.
Does your current bathroom need to be updated immediately? Introducing One Day Bath and Shower Remodeling, the complete and hassle-free way to get the new bathroom of your dreams in as little as 1 day and for as little as $199 a month. Yes, the experts at One Day Bath and Shower Remodeling will come to you anywhere in the country and show you all the customized options. Now you can have a brand new bathroom in as little as 1 day. Large or small bathrooms, if you want a new bathtub or shower installed, we can do it in as little as 1 day. And if you call right now, you can save $750 off your remodel. We make it easy by offering you financing as low as $199 per month. So for as little as $199 a month, you can finally have the bathroom of your dreams. Call now to schedule your free in-home consultation.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning. Rick is the president of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcast of our show, be it our radio show, be it our TV show, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. Sorry, but Rick Manning is with us by phone today. We could make a video connection with Rick, but we do have our first guest of the day with us, and that is Trent England. Trent is the executive director of Save Our States. He's previously worked as an executive vice president for both the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs and the Freedom Foundation. He was a legal policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation, and Trent is a Publius Fellow for the Claremont Institute. He's the author of the book, Why We Must Defend the Electoral College, and he's a contributor of the Heritage Guide to the Constitution and One Nation Under Arrest. That's an interesting title. Trent, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
I'm glad to be here, Rick. Thanks for having me on the program.
Great to have you with us. And you wrote an article, Breaking Faith with the Electoral College, and you start this article by saying, the Supreme Court recently upheld state laws against faithless electors, and many Americans breathed a sigh of relief. Trent, why is that? Why are they breathing that sigh of relief?
Well, so I should admit, part of the reason why people are breathing a sigh of relief is that the media was kind of, I think, making even more out of this case than was warranted. You know, they were saying, well, if the court strikes down laws against faithless presidential electors, then it will throw the system into chaos. That was never really true. But people tend to favor the status quo. And what the court said was, look, we understand the Electoral College is a two-step democratic process. People vote in their states. That determines how their states are supposed to cast their electoral votes. And the Supreme Court unanimously said if states want to have state laws that basically make sure that that happens, states can do that. So, a lot of Americans, I guess, I think are relieved that the status quo can continue. States that want to have those laws can. Some states don't. Basically, the system works pretty flawlessly in either case, but it will continue to work just fine.
Trent, what surprised me by reading your article, this was a unanimous decision. Wow. We don't have very many of those these days in the Supreme Court, do we?
Well, not on high-profile topics. It's the sort of untold story of the Supreme Court that actually a lot of what they do is sort of mundane and oftentimes is unanimous. But in these higher-profile cases, that's absolutely right. And I will say, I was even surprised that the court decided this one unanimously.
All right. Well, Trent, let's talk about the Electoral College. And you write in your article, this is how the Electoral College works. Well, explain to our audience, because it's very confusing. Explain to our audience exactly how it does work.
Yeah, that's always a good place to start, is with the basics of the Electoral College. Of course, it's in the Constitution. It's in Article 2, Section 1, and then also in the 12th Amendment that made a few modifications, ratified in the year 1804. And one of the important things to understand about the Electoral College is that presidential electors are real people. Of course, that's where the whole issue of faithless electors comes from. Mm-hmm. They're real people. They are nominated by political parties, just like pretty much any other elected office, right? Presidential electors for Iowa or Virginia or Oklahoma are state elected officials, and the party nominates them. And then in every state with some variations, but it basically works this way. We go, and in November, we cast our votes. Typically, the ballot just has the name of the Republican, Democrat, maybe Libertarian, maybe Green Party nominees. Whichever candidate gets the most votes in our state, that candidate's political party presidential electors are chosen, and in early December, they cast the electoral votes for that candidate. So it's a democratic process, but it's a two-step democratic process.
Trent, and I believe it's in Maine that if the state of Maine goes for one candidate, that candidate won't necessarily get all of Maine's 5 electoral votes. I think it's 5. But up there, it's done more on a congressional district plan, I think. So how can Maine have one set of rules? Other states are now saying that, well, irregardless of how our state votes, we're going to throw all our electoral votes to the candidate who gets the most popular votes. Is this what this case was about? Will all states have to adhere to the same set of laws now?
No. So every state has laws on how presidential electors are chosen. And then many states, but not all states, have laws on binding presidential electors, requiring that they keep faith with the pledge that they took to vote for their own party's nominee. So the case before the Supreme Court was only about laws, about pledges, about requiring electors to vote with the way that they had pledged. Mm-hmm. It's not about how electors are chosen. And the Constitution really leaves that pretty open. It says in Article 2, Section 1, each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors. And then it goes on to specify a few kind of provisos and limitations. But the power is given to state legislatures to figure out how best to represent their own state. And that's why in Maine, and Nebraska actually does the same thing. In those 2 states, they choose presidential electors by congressional district. Every other state does it by a statewide vote, winner take all. If you get the most, if Donald Trump gets the most votes in Oklahoma, then all of Oklahoma's electoral votes go to Donald Trump, right? There are different ways that states have done it in the past, but it's always been about representing the state, which really means the people of the state in presidential elections. The system was designed to do that. As you pointed out, now you have some agitators on the left. They want to throw that system out, sort of manipulate the Electoral College or hijack it to basically ratify the popular vote. That is an abuse of the founders' design, but it is a question of whether it's a legal abuse or an illegal abuse of the founders' design.
Trent, one of these groups, the National Popular Vote NPV. They're frustrated. They're frustrated over this. So tell us about this group. What are they trying to do? What are their motives and reasons?
Yeah, so after Al Gore lost in 2000, a couple of liberal law professors got together and they wanted to get rid of the Electoral College, but they knew they couldn't amend the Constitution. They just didn't have enough support to do that. So they came up with this other idea, which is to change the laws on how presidential electors are selected, excuse me, in order to create a national popular vote without changing the Constitution. And to do that, they said, well, we'll make a state law that says each state that passes this law will choose its presidential electors based on the nationwide vote. And if you get enough states to do that, then you really do hijack the Electoral College to be a popular vote system. They wrote it into what's called an interstate compact, which is state legislation that creates an agreement among all the states that pass it. And they said this will only take effect if it's passed by states that would control the outcome, that have 270 electoral votes or more between them. So they would control the outcome of the election. Today, they are at 196 electoral votes. So they are more than 70% of the way to actually hijacking the Electoral College. It's a pretty scary prospect, I think.
Is there any way to stop this group?
Well, I think the best way to stop it is actually what my group does every day. We fight it in state legislatures because we really need to stop it there. And that's the primary way is to convince state legislatures not to pass it, or if they have passed it, to repeal it. The other options are it's an interstate compact, so it should need ratification in Congress. And I also spent some time talking to members of Congress, making sure that they know that this is a bad idea, and that they also know that they should make sure that that they actually have a say in this. The Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, says they should. Unfortunately, not every interstate compact has gone through that process. So that's another place to stop it. And third, is in court. Because the law doesn't take effect until they get to a point where they can control elections, you can't sue because you don't have what's called standing. The law technically hasn't taken effect yet, so you can't go to court and stop a law that's not in effect. But be certain if the law ever does, if national popular vote ever does claim to take effect, we certainly would go to court and try to get it struck down for a whole variety of reasons. I mean, there are a lot of problems with this scheme: constitutional problems, practical problems. But we're really focused on defeating them in the court of public opinion and state legislatures. I think that's the best way.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we're talking with Trent England. He's the executive director of Save Our States, and we're talking about breaking faith with the Electoral College. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host is Rick Manning, and we'll be right back with our guest right after this break.
Attention homeowners, do you have a house that's in need of serious repairs? Do you have tenants that never seem to make their monthly payments? How about code violations, past due taxes, or maintenance costs you just can't afford? Then call my friends right now at Quick Cash Offer. They specialize in buying any home, no matter how ugly the situation. Turn that problem property into cash right now. It's just that simple. One call and you can get rid of that home headache forever. They buy the ugliest houses with instant closings, instant cash, and huge savings. Plus, there are no realtor fees, no listing fees, and no repair costs. Just cash in your hands for that painful property. They're buying a few more houses in your neighborhood this month. So take advantage of this cash offer and call Quick Cash Offer now.
855-296-8854. 855-296-8854. That's 855-296-8854.
Listen carefully. If your student loan debt is overwhelming you and things seem hopeless, we've got great news.
If you're still struggling with your student loan debt, there are government programs available that may actually lower your payments by consolidating your federal student loans. Just call us. We'll review your situation and work with you to consolidate your debt. In many cases, depending on your situation, we can lower your monthly payments in half. or more. It doesn't matter how much you owe or how far behind you are. Even if you're in default, call us right now to find out how we can lower your payment in half immediately. You can stop the harassing phone calls and the wage garnishments. All you need to do is pick up the phone and call us right now. We can remove your default status, consolidate your federal student loans, lower your payments, and we can do it today. Stop worrying. This is a real solution that can help. So please call us right now.
Call 800-917-8671.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you and all seniors from the Final Expense Insurance Hotline. The average funeral costs about $7,000, even more. And the most government benefits will pay your family is only $255. That leaves your loved ones with a burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay up to $30,000 for your funeral and other final expenses. There's no medical exam and you'll have lifetime coverage. Plus, your rates will never increase and your plan cannot be canceled regardless of your medical condition, as long as you make your premium payments. Get free information right now. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 855-221-7334.
Do you have an idea for an invention, but you don't know what to do next?
How do you get in front of companies or get a patent?
Call InventHelp. They've been helping inventors just like you for 35 years.
And thousands of people contact them every month.
With 65 offices, you can meet with an InventHelp representative near you who will keep your idea confidential and explain their invention process step by step. InventHelp has helped over 10,000 inventors get patents. And they offer 3D animations and prototyping services to help demonstrate your idea. InventHelp's exclusive databank includes over 9,000 companies who have agreed to confidentially review new ideas, like yours.
Don't wonder what to do next. Take action right now and get the help you need from InventHelp.
InventHelp. Call today for free information.
800-880-2937. That's 800-880-2937 now.
And once again, we want to thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning. Rick is the president for Americans for Limited Government. And yours truly, Rick Trader. And I want to give a shout out to folks who are listening to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California, Arlington, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and also seen on the AUN television network in places like San Francisco, Sacramento, San Jose, Santa Rosa, Redding, Wine Country, Silicon Valley, all those places you would expect conservatives to be. Our guest this segment is Trent England. Trent is the executive director of Save Our States. And Trent, I want to thank you for holding through that break. We really do appreciate your time. On the other line, I have my co-host for the day. The co-host is Rick Manning. And I know Rick wants to get into this conversation. Rick?
Yeah, thank you, Rick. This is really a fundamental conversation to how our country is supposed to work. And it seems to me that that has been lost. And since Trent is a representative, runs Save Our States, Trent, could you go back to fundamental principles? Why do states matter?
Yeah, Rick, thank you for that question. That is such an important thing to talk about. One of the reasons why our country has been successful is that we are a nation of states. And this is one of those things we take for granted, all of these institutions that have allowed our country to develop. And then you see people marching in the streets who just don't understand the rich heritage that they've inherited. The American founders realized something, and they realized it by seeing it. The country that they created by fighting the revolution and creating first the Articles of Confederation and then coming back and creating the Constitution of the United States was already made up of these originally colonies, and then they became states, and they had their own identities, they had their own governments, their own representative structures. And when it came to creating the Constitution, like today, there was some talk about just efficiency. Well, maybe we should break down state boundaries, and maybe that would be more efficient and easier. And from a certain perspective, it certainly would be easier. It'd be easier to draw the map. It would be easier to tell people what to do and to create top-down, one-size-fits-all solutions. But what happened in our country, because we preserved these states, is that we got multiple governments that are forced to compete with each other and forced to compete with the federal government, which means here in Oklahoma, where I am, government can be different than it is in California or in Wyoming or in Texas or in Florida. And that's a good thing for several different reasons. I mean, one is it's just different in Oklahoma than it is in California or in Florida, right? So we can have policies here that work better for us that wouldn't necessarily work somewhere else. But also, if California goes and does some crazy thing and Oklahoma takes a different path, we're doing a natural experiment. We're doing an experiment in real time. We get to see what actually works and what doesn't work. And that makes us smarter. That's how humans learn. We learn by comparing, by contrasting. Unfortunately, we learn by failing. And, it's great that one state can have one policy that fails and 49 other states can look at that and learn from that without it dragging down the whole country. So this system that's oftentimes called federalism, this system of states, is actually one of the things that has made our country so successful and allowed us to be very dynamic and at the same time very stable. And if you're stable, you can be free and you can be prosperous. And that's where we are today. Hopefully we won't mess it up.
Yeah, hopefully. There are two things you hit on. Yeah, a lot of things there, but there's two paths, and I'm not sure which one to go down. So let me go back to first principles. Talk about how the relationship between the federal government and state governments evolved from the Revolution through the Articles of Confederation, why that failed, and how we ended up with a Constitution which creates that balance between the federal government and the states, so the system works.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's fascinating. You go right back to the Declaration of Independence, and they talk about severing the bonds. They talk about these political bonds that connected. Each one of the colonies was a separate political entity. At the same time, they were also united, and they were uniting. And, there was a practical reality there that turned out to be very important. And when they created the Articles of Confederation during the Revolutionary War, all they had was, all they had really for a national executive government was the Continental Army. Other than that, it was each state, each colonial government became a state government. And so each state had its own government. And the Articles of Confederation basically just sort of put a stamp on that, said, this is the system we're going to have. After the war, it was very unsuccessful because they actually had lost something that had made the colonies successful. The colonies were successful because they had the British government, frankly, managing their trade, trade among the colonies, trade with foreign powers, managing their defense, effectively their national defense, regulating sea travel and some of these interstate issues. And really what they came back to in the Constitution was, sure, we don't want to be governed by a king across the water. That we don't need that. That doesn't make sense. But we do need some kind of a government to allow the states to thrive, right, without tearing each other apart. We need a government that facilitates things like international trade and trade among the states and foreign policy, and has a military so that they can be strong enough. I mean, again, you have to have the stability, the security in order to have the freedom and the prosperity. And they managed to create this balance, I think, just right. And they did it frankly, maybe this is heresy, but not because they were necessarily brilliant political theorists, but because they were humble enough to learn from history, including their own history, and to took what worked out of the colonial period and turn it into something that has just, worked like gangbusters during the 19th century to where, we went from being this backwater poor country to being the most powerful country in the world over the course of 100 years, and shortly thereafter, saving the old world not once but twice. So it's a pretty amazing story.
Yes, it is. And the reason I had you do that is because to set the stage for the answer to the question a lot of people have about Electoral College, and that is, why they put the Electoral College in the first place? And my recollection from history class many years ago is that there was a fear of imbalance, that big states would have too much power and little states would effectively be run over. Is that kind of what the concern was, and how does that equate to today?
That's right. There's one point at the Constitutional Convention where James Madison stands up and he says, look, guys, is my paraphrase, obviously, but he says, look, I would love a popular vote, right? It's simple. It's easy, right? The power comes from the people, and if you can have a popular vote, that's a pretty straightforward system. But we have some really big states like New York and Virginia, and we have a whole bunch of really small states. And if we have a direct popular vote for president, those small states are basically going to be ignored. They just won't matter. And it's not that they won't matter in one election or for a decade. It's that they won't matter ever, right? I mean, excuse me, Rhode Island was a small state then. It's a small state today, right? Vermont, would soon become a state, and it's always been a tiny state, right? So Madison understood, it's one thing to feel sort of left out for a moment. It's another thing to feel locked out forever. And so this leads to the creation of the Electoral College. Also, the initial plan, the Virginia plan, the rough draft of the Constitution called for a parliamentary system. And so the Electoral College becomes really this compromise between a parliamentary system where Congress would have chosen the president and a direct election system. They say, well, what if we create this sort of pop-up Congress where each state chooses some presidential electors, the same number as they have members of the House and Senate, so the same power they have in Congress, and they'll choose the president. So, it's coming from the states, really from the people of the states, but you still have this balance from the grand compromise.
Yeah, and it seems to me that and we've got just about a minute left, but
actually, Rick, we've got to be running. We're coming up against a hard break, so I'm sorry to do that to you. Trent England, Executive Director of Save Our States. Trent, please tell our audience how they could follow you, the things that you write, and the work that you do with the Save Our States.
Absolutely. SaveOurStates.com is the website. I'm on Twitter at Trent England and at Save Our States. Or you can go to Facebook and search up Save Our States and connect with we've got a private activist group on there you can be a part of. Love to connect with you. Thank you, Rick and Rick.
Right. Well, thank you, Trent England. Take care and God bless. You are listening to and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning and Rick Trader. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with George Parry. George is a contributor to the American Spectator, and we're going to discuss an article that he wrote that disappeared. Social media whack-a-mole with America's frontline doctors. Don't go away. We'll be right back with our next guest.
Here's a great way to save money on your prescription medications. If you take Viagra or Cialis, we can give you a way to pay as little as $2 a pill. Compare that to prices as high as $60 per tablet. Call now with your prescription and pay as little as $2 a pill. We offer 24/7 service and always free delivery and confidential packaging. Call Pharmacy Shop 24/7 to get generic versions of Viagra or Cialis for as little as $2 a pill, plus free discreet shipping.
Broken AC, $4,600. Water heater, $1,500. Fridge on the fritz, $1,000. You need home warranty coverage from the Home Service Club for around $1 a day. If any of your covered appliances and systems break down, HSC will either repair or replace them.
HSC provides coverage of up to 47 different appliances and systems in your home.
I trust HSC.
HSC has over 15,000 pre-screened, highly rated technicians with the fastest response time in the industry. They cover everything from ACs, stoves, fridges, pool pumps, and more. Call the number on your screen now for a free no-obligation quote from a trusted HSC specialist about a home warranty for your entire home, backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call now and get 1 month free plus $75 off your first year of coverage. 1 month free and $75 off your first year. The Home Service Club.
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for dental visits. Did you?
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for transportation to my doctor. Did you?
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay to have my prescriptions delivered directly to my home. Did you?
These and more are important benefits some Medicare Advantage plans may give you. So if you're eligible for Medicare, call us right now because you may be eligible to enroll in a plan with amazing additional benefits. Some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for services like these: dental visits, vision coverage, hearing coverage, home delivery of drugs, even gym memberships. Some plans may include no copays for many services and 0 deductibles. Don't wait to find out if you're eligible to enroll in a plan that may include some of these wonderful benefits you deserve. Call us right now. The call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation. Make this free call now to learn if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan that may include additional benefits you want. Call us right now.
Here's a great way to save money on your prescription medications. If you take Viagra or Cialis, we can give you a way to pay as little as $2 a pill. Compare that to prices as high as $60 per tablet. Call now with your prescription and pay as little as $2 a pill. We offer 24/7 service and always free delivery and confidential packaging. Call Pharmacy Shop 24/7 to get generic versions of Viagra or Cialis for as little as $2 a pill, plus free discreet shipping.
And once again, we want to thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning. Rick is the president of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader, and for rebroadcasts of our show. Check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You'll find our TV show there, as well as our radio show, and a lot of other terrific information. Our guest this segment is George Parry. George is a contributor to the American Spectator, the Federalist, and the Philadelphia Inquirer. George is a former federal and state prosecutor. He served as a special attorney for the Organized Crime and Racketeering Section, the U.S. Department of Justice, Unit Chief, Investigations Division, Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, Special Organized Crime Prosecutor in Blair and Cambria counties in Pennsylvania, and a legal analyst for KYW-TV in Philadelphia. George, welcome back to Conservative Commandos.
Great to be back with you.
Well, George, you did it again. You wrote another very interesting article that disappeared. The social media whack-a-mole with America's frontline doctors. And George, you write in your article, in contrast to the researchers and government medical experts who have documented the media's pandemic coverage, the AFD members actually see and treat real patients. Their 43-minute press conference on Capitol Hill was filled with valuable information. Tell us, George, about that 43-minute press conference and what was in it, what kind of valuable information for anyone who was there or anyone who heard or saw that press conference. What information could they have gathered from it?
Well, the group was America's Frontline Doctors country, and as I say in the article, they treat actual patients. They're not researchers. They are not government factotums like some of the physicians are, excuse me, who have gained such prominence during the COVID-19 pandemic. And they had a 7-hour-long presentation for physicians and people who were interested in the subject, in which they presented their information concerning how to treat COVID-19 and what should be done about it. And as part of their presentation, they had a 43-minute long press conference on Capitol Hill, standing in front of the Supreme Court building, which is in the background. Mm-hmm. And it was opened by Dr. Simone Gold. And Rick, I'm going to read to you part of what she said in her opening remarks, because I think it was so important what she had to say, and it really gets to the heart of why these people were ultimately obliterated by the social media monopolists who control what information we are allowed to have access to. Dr. Gold said in her opening remarks, let me just get them here so that I get it right. She said, Americans are riveted and captured by fear at the moment. We are not held down by the virus as much as we're being held down by the spider web of fear. That spider web is all around us, and it's constricting us, and it's draining the lifeblood of the American people, American society, and American economy.
Mm-hmm.
She said, this does not make sense. And I'll cut out the middle part of the paragraph, but she said that if in the early phase, either before you get the virus or early when you've gotten the virus, there's treatment. That's what we're here to tell you. We're going to talk about that this afternoon. You can find it on America's Frontline Doctors, their website. There's many other sites that are streaming it live on Facebook, but we implore you to hear this because this message has been silenced.
Mm-hmm.
There are many thousands of physicians who have been silenced for telling the American people the good news about the situation, that we can manage the virus carefully and intelligently, but we cannot live with this spider web of fear that's constricting our country. Now, those were Dr. Simone Gold's opening words at the beginning of the press conference. So, excuse me, I watched the video on YouTube, and I thought it was of such importance that I posted it on my blog, which is knowledgeisgood.net. And within about an hour, I got an email from a subscriber who said the YouTube link is inoperative. And so I went and I checked, and indeed, YouTube had, which is owned by Google, had taken it down. And they said, when you clicked on the YouTube link, you got this message. This video has been removed for violating YouTube's community guidelines. And then it said, if you want to learn more, you can click on Learn More. So I did that, and you got this advisory. Our community guidelines are designed to ensure our community stays protected. So as I observed in my article, I said, okay, so Google and YouTube aren't trying to silence anybody. They're here to protect us. But what are they protecting us from? And I posed the question, do they have a panel of medical experts who reviewed the contents of this video? Did they, what was their basis for doing this? Was there a sound medical reason for not sharing this information, which came from these eminently well-qualified physicians? And I said, what was the basis for doing it? Why did they decide we needed to be protected? And then I made the observation, look, as between the millennial computer geeks who had their thumb on the Google kill switch and the America's Frontline Doctors, I'd rather get my medical information from America's Frontline Doctors.
You think?
Yeah.
You think, George?
Yeah, what the heck? Hey, it's just one of those crazy ideas. So anyhow, the subscriber who had told me that the link had been taken down gave me another link where I could find the video of the press conference. So I posted that link, and it worked for a while. And when it worked, it was okay. And then after about an hour, that one went dark as well. So then I thought, well, okay, Dr. Gold said in her opening statement that America's Frontline Doctors has a website. So I'll go to the website. Stupid me. I went to the America's Frontline Doctors website, and I got this message. Website expired. This account has expired. If you are the site owners, click below to sign. So now, YouTube, gone. Second link, gone. The website for America's Frontline Doctors, gone. So then another subscriber sent me a link to where I could find the transcript of the press conference. And indeed, I went to the link, and it was on something called the Rev, that is REV website, but it came with this warning. Warning, this press conference has been flagged and taken down by multiple social media platforms for containing, quote, misleading, close quote, or, quote, false, close quote, information. Rev does not condone the use of any COVID-19 treatments outlined in this press conference. So then I also posted a link that was sent to me by another subscriber to where you could find the forbidden video, and it was on the UtahGunExchange.com. I mean, we're down to this now. We have to go to the Utah Gun Exchange to get our medical information.
Unreal.
And
is that link still up, George?
Say again?
Is that link still up?
As far as I know, but also since I published the article, I was advised that you can also find it now on Breitbart.com. But the conclusion that I reached was that the social media giants have decided that we cannot allow anything to contradict the drumbeat of fear which is being used to cow Americans into submission, and that there are people who seek to obtain political power as a result of this pandemic, and also a lot of people who stand to make a lot of money by pushing very expensive experimental vaccines and experimental drugs. And it's the social media monopolies that have pledged their support to those who just want to keep America scared to death.
Yeah, I think it's not only they want to keep America scared to death, but they want to replace the man that's in the White House. George, we're going to have to go to a break in a minute. On the other side, Rick Manning will pick this up. But I just wanted to let you know and our audience know that we took about 9.5 minutes of this press conference and we inserted it as a segment here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Now, what we do is we archive our shows on YouTube. So anybody can go onto our website, find a link to our shows, and watch your listening. Guess what? YouTube found it. They found this 9.5 minute segment of our show, which we show this press conference, and they removed the entire show.
What a surprise.
Well, a little bit to me that they would go in the middle of a 2-hour show and find a 9.5 minute segment of this press conference and delete our show.
Yeah. Well, how dare you?
How dare you?
Yeah. Well, there's a punchline to all this, too. I know we're heading into a break. I can tell you now, or I can tell you after the break.
Well, go ahead. Tell us now.
Okay. Well, Dr. Simone Gold, who is a graduate of the University of Chicago Medical School and board certified in emergency medicine, was summarily fired from her job for appearing at that press conference and participating in that workshop. That's the punchline. But she did say, by the way, she was on Tucker Carlson, and I posted a link to her appearance on Tucker Carlson on my website. She did say that the YouTube video of their press conference had 18 million views before Google took it down, and that it was, they've been told, the most viral video in the history of YouTube. So that's some good news. Despite everything that Google and YouTube have done and the other social media giants have done to shut down this message, it got out, and now theoretically you can find it. I've been told you can find it on Breitbart. I'll have to check that link now. Maybe it's still on the Utah Gun Exchange website. I haven't checked within the last day or two. But to go into the content of your show and to edit it for you, I think is...
No, not edit. They totally eliminated the show. They kicked the show off. They totally deleted the show. Hey, George, we do have to go to a break, and you are listening to and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Our guest this segment...
Here's a great way to save money on your prescription medications. If you take Viagra or Cialis, we can give you a way to pay as little as $2 a pill. Compare that to prices as high as $60 per tablet. Call now with your prescription and pay as little as $2 a pill. We offer 24/7 service and always free delivery and confidential packaging. Call Pharmacy Shop 24/7 to get generic versions of Viagra or Cialis for as little as $2 a pill, plus free discreet shipping.
Broken AC, $4,600. Water heater, $1,500. Fridge on the fritz, $1,000. You need home warranty coverage from the Home Service Club for around $1 a day. If any of your covered appliances and systems break down, HSC will either repair or replace them.
HSC provides coverage of up to 47 different appliances and systems in your home.
I trust HSC.
HSC has over 15,000 pre-screened, highly rated technicians with the fastest response time in the industry. They cover everything from ACs, stoves, fridges, pool pumps, and more. Call the number on your screen now for a free, no-obligation quote from a trusted HSC specialist about a home warranty for your entire home, backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call now and get 1 month free plus $75 off your first year of coverage. 1 month free and $75 off your first year. The Home Service Club.
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for dental visits. Did you?
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for transportation to my doctor. Did you?
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay to have my prescriptions delivered directly to my home. Did you?
These and more are important benefits some Medicare Advantage plans may give you. So if you're eligible for Medicare, call us right now because you may be eligible to enroll in a plan with amazing additional benefits. Some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for services like these: dental visits, vision coverage, hearing coverage, home delivery of drugs, even gym memberships. Some plans may include no copays for many services and 0 deductibles. Don't wait to find out if you're eligible to enroll in a plan that may include some of these wonderful benefits you deserve. Call us right now. The call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation. Make this free call now to learn if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan that may include additional benefits you want. Call us right now.
Here's a great way to save money on your prescription medications. If you take Viagra or Cialis, we can give you a way to pay as little as $2 a pill. Compare that to prices as high as $60 per tablet. Call now with your prescription and pay as little as $2 a pill. We offer 24/7 service and always free delivery and confidential packaging. Call Pharmacy Shop 24/7 to get generic versions of Viagra or Cialis for as little as $2 a pill, plus free discreet shipping.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning and yours truly, Rick Trader. And once again, I want to give a shout out to folks who are listening to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California, Arlington, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and also seen on the AUN television network. Our guest this segment is George Parry. He is a contributor to the American Spectator, and we're discussing an article that George has posted up on that site right now, The Disappeared Social Media Whack-A-Mole with America's Frontline Doctors. And George, my co-host Rick Manning, is on the other line, and I know Rick wants to get into this conversation. Rick?
Yeah, thank you, Rick. This was, if people didn't hear the first segment, they need to go back and listen to it. George, one of the things that concerns me about what has happened is this is an exponential leap from, saying, oh, we're going to ban hate speech, whatever that is, to now we're going to ban content that we don't want anybody to hear, and taking the internet from being a place where you can have a free exchange of ideas to a place where you can have an exchange of ideas as long as it's approved by Silicon Valley. That seems to me to be the real dramatic leap that's occurred here. How do you see it?
Well, I see it the same way, and one of the interesting things is the same day that America's Frontline Doctors held their press conference, there were hearings on Capitol Hill as to whether or not the social media giants should continue to enjoy an exemption under the antitrust laws as mere purveyors of information. That is, they started out as, well, we're an open forum and anybody who wants can just come on and say whatever they want, and therefore we shouldn't be held responsible for the content. And the statutes that control all of this were structured that way so that these social media platforms are not subject to the usual constraints that the rest of us are subject to pertaining to the content. And they have an exemption under the antitrust laws. And this is a perfect example of why those exemptions need to be re-examined, because they are not acting as just a wide open forum for whatever anybody wants to put up there. They are now censoring the content. They claim that they are, say in the case of America's Frontline Doctors, that they are protecting us, as if they have some kind of duty to protect us, and that's all they're doing is carrying out that duty. Well, if they're going to assume that duty, then it seems to me they're more than just an open forum that should be free to do so and to run their business free of the antitrust or under the antitrust exemption. I think they need to be opened up to serious competition, and that can only happen if the antitrust laws are revised so that it becomes financially viable for others to come in and to compete with them, because they are not just open forums anymore. They are, in fact, very effective at controlling the flow of information. Almost the entire online world has to deal with Google and go through Google to get their information. And I attended a conference that the American Spectator held once, and there was a Dr. Epstein from Harvard who has made a study of what these social media giants are doing and how they plan to affect the outcome of the 2020 election. Google, for example, if you want to do Google searches on Donald Trump, and the search results will come back with maybe the first 10 or 15 stories as being negative to Donald Trump. And then further down, if you bother to go that far down in the search results, you might find a few that are positive about Trump. And they manipulate the access to information. And this expert had concluded that they could swing between 9 and 11 million votes, which is quite stunning. So we got a real problem on our hands with Google and with Facebook and with Twitter and similar platforms. And well, they're not that many other platforms, but we've got a problem here. These people control the flow of information to the American people, and they're playing for one particular team, and it's not our team, I'll tell you that.
Well, and one of the things, I actually had this conversation with former Attorney General Sessions directly with him about the need to implement antitrust laws in this regard. But one of the things that is striking to me, and let's just go with Section 230, which you described earlier, is their exemption from, because they're an open platform, their exemption from certain liabilities.
Yeah.
If simply on the Section 230 section, if that were applied and they were suddenly turned into an edited entity, a single thing would happen, and that is every single Getty image on Google, Google would have to pay Getty Images for those images. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, it would be a massive financial hit to Google, which they would then have to make a decision as to whether to go back to being a neutral platform or not. Because essentially the entirety of the business model for Google, Facebook, Instagram, which is part of Facebook, YouTube, which is part of Google, Twitter, their entire business model is we provide the content, and individuals provide the content, and then individuals provide their data, which then Google sells to everybody else. And so we're the product. We're both the content providers and the product. Yeah. And all they are is the platform. So it seems to me if they're not going to allow for equal access to the platform, they ought to pay for the content.
Well, that makes perfect sense. And they're certainly going to do everything they can to make sure that that never happens. But I do think that there is concern. And I think after the November election, if Trump is still president, I think we're going to see some action on this front. I mean, right now, everything's in a state of paralysis because you have the Democrats in control of the House and the Republicans in control of the Senate. So the stars need to align, the planets need to align before we can see any serious movement on that kind of reform. But it's a very serious question. The days of people going to print newspapers to get their information are over. Or as one of the scientists in Ghostbusters said back in the 80s, print is dead. And in the case of the news media, that is certainly true. If it wasn't for Fox News, we'd have no idea what was going on in the world. And even Fox News isn't all that great when you get right down to it on some of these matters. But Google just has an enormous amount of power to control the flow of information in this country. And I don't think, when they started, I don't think people anticipated that it was going to be that way, but that's the way it is now.
That is the way it is. Let me ask you a real quick question. We got about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You used to do RICO law. That's what you did. Given the rapidness of these companies colluding together to take down this video, is there a potential RICO case?
I'm sorry, a potential which?
RICO case.
RICO, I'm not, I doubt it. The RICO predicates are a series of crimes. Well, there could be a conspiracy in here that might touch on one of the predicate RICO crimes. I'd really have to look that over. I have to give you an honest answer. I'd really have to look that over. But the big problem here is how quickly these things can be done electronically. In the old days, you could try and seek the intervention of a court before the action was taken. But in the electronic age, I don't know if that's even possible. But you need to open them up to government regulation, and you need to remove the cloak of immunity that they have from being legally responsible for their editorial decisions. And I think then they would become almost a self-regulating industry, because they would be facing the same kind of liability that all the rest of us face.
George Parry, always enjoy having you on with us here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. George, please tell our audience how they could follow your work, read your articles, and find out more about this issue.
Okay, I have a blog. It's called knowledgeisgood.net. It's all one word, knowledgeisgood.net. And anybody who wants to email me, I can be reached by KIGNET1@gmail.com. KIG, which is for knowledge is good, KIGNET1@gmail.com.
George Parry, again, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Okay, thank you, Rick. With pleasure.
And you are listening to and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. After this break, we're going to be speaking with Shaun Flanagan. He's the director of the Center for Matrix at the Latham Institute in London, England, talking about America's post-COVID prosperity. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And once again, we want to thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning. Rick is the president of Americans for Limited Government, and I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. For rebroadcast of our shows, check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. Don't forget to like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. We do have our next guest, and that's Shaun Flanagan. He's the director of the Center for Matrix at the Latham Institute in London. Shaun, help me with that. How do you pronounce that?
You got it perfectly right there, Rick. Legatum Institute or Legatum Institute, one of the two.
All right. And Shaun has spent 20 years as working in the UK government statistical services, gathering data and producing analysis for the government ministries and the officials to inform and monitor government policy in a number of departments. In 2012, he left the civil service to head the statistics at the Association for British Insurers, where he ran a team of producing large volume of data outputs on the UK insurance industry. Shaun, you have a long bio for us. We won't go into everything, but we want to thank you for joining us here on Conservative Commandos radio show. And we'd like to discuss an article you wrote, America's Post-COVID Prosperity. Shaun, you're from the UK. You're British. Why does the American economy so interest you?
Yeah, that's great. Well, Rick, thanks very much for having me on. It's great to be with you and your listeners today. So we at the Anthem Institute are passionate about creating the pathways from poverty to prosperity. And when we talk about prosperity, we're talking about a combination of both economic and social well-being. And we've been monitoring that at a global level for 167 nations around the world for about 13 years through our global index. And when we look at the US, we see that the US does really well on the open economies domain of the index, but on the other two domains, inclusive societies and empowered people, it doesn't do quite so well. And so that led us to wanting to understand how prosperity translates across the 50 states of the Union and DC. And we therefore developed the United States Prosperity Index. But you're absolutely right, Rick. What is a think tank on the other side of the pond doing, creating an index on the US? So we were very aware of that, and we wanted to couple our expertise of data and measurement with local expertise. So we partnered with about 40 US experts on health, education, living conditions, natural environment, and they really helped us shape what the index should be and what should go in it.
Well, Shaun, this must be really interesting times for you when you follow the world's economies and the countries of the world. And, you know, Shaun, when this outbreak hit and businesses here in the United States was shut down, 40 million people thrown out of work, I thought, my God, what we've done here is we have created a Great Depression with very similar numbers to the Great Depression of 1929. Was I far off from that estimation?
Well, I think what we're looking through is through the lens of the index. And one of the encouraging signs, if you like, is the index tells us that over the past decade, post-financial crisis for the US, is that US prosperity has been rising year on year. And prior to heading into the pandemic, US prosperity was at its highest ever level. So absolutely, since then, things have changed and the landscape, has changed considerably. But in many ways, if you're going to head into a pandemic, then the US was probably best placed to head into that pandemic at the current time. So absolutely, there's going to be serious impact when we look through the index and we monitor that over time. But there were many encouraging signs that we saw as the US headed into this.
What were those encouraging signs?
So one of the things that we saw is that post-financial crisis, one of the things we capture in the open economies domain is through our economic quality pillar, is looking at the fiscal sustainability of the states, of each state. And what we see is that on average, each state strengthened its financial reserves over the past decade, so could survive 2.5 times longer than it could in 2010. Now that's obviously crucial. States, grapple with declining tax revenues, both from businesses and personal things. So that was an encouraging sign, is that there was at least more cash to help survive longer than would have been the case 10 years ago.
So when I talk about the Great Depression of 1929, comparing it to this, I call a self-induced depression, I also said, Shaun, well, it took 16 years in a world war to get us out of that last Great Depression. You think I was over-exaggerating things, or are we in much better shape going into this depression than we were in 1929?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult.
Or can you even equate the two?
I think one of the things that we obviously have through the index is a comprehensive assessment of the US, not just across the economic aspect, but also the social aspect. And that sort of holistic picture was probably not available to the same extent, I don't think, as it was back then as it is now. So what we're able to see through the index is those areas which will help the US, we think, through, but also those areas which are perhaps going to be more susceptible, areas that are perhaps a big concern as the US continues to grapple with the pandemic. So, for example, when we look at, whilst on the economic side, it's strengthened over the past decade, and there are aspects we see which will position the US well. It's not to say that it's not going to be hit hard by this, but on the social side, we see things like health. Whilst health overall has improved over the past decade, we see that mental health has deteriorated. And that's obviously a big concern as you head into a pandemic. As people are concerned about their jobs, to your point, Rick, about losing their job, but also just general anxiety about, am I going to get this thing, and what's it going to do to me if I do? That really is going to exacerbate mental health, we think.
All right. The United States Prosperity Index, the USPI, provides a comprehensive picture of the industrial, economic, and social aspects of prosperity for all the 50 states of the Union plus Washington, D.C. Shaun, let's talk about some of the states, and you and I had a conversation earlier today as far as what states we broadcast into, our radio show and our TV show. Talk about the states and how each one of those states are handling this.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good question, because they're all handling it differently. They're all grappling with it differently to some extent. And so one of the things we were able to do through the index is provide a state-by-state comprehensive overview. So if your listeners go to the website usprosperity.net, there is a profile for every single state. And also for the first time this year, a profile for 829 counties. And that gives you all the detail, full transparency, all the way down to the individual indicators that go into the index. But one of the things that we saw on a macro level is that whilst prosperity across the US has been rising over the past decade, that prosperity is not universally shared. So we generally find that states in the north outperform those in the south. And whilst every single state, even those states in the northeast that perhaps do the best, even there is at least one pillar of prosperity that they could strengthen and improve on. So it's almost like we believe the index is a way of each state being able to compare and look at other states. So where one state is weak in a particular area, where is another state performing strongly, and what is it that they're doing that another state could learn from and benefit from, and perhaps look to implement similar policy initiatives to help strengthen their prosperity for their residents.
Can you talk about some of those states and some of the columns of strengths and weaknesses, and in particular, like for instance, we broadcast on 7 TV stations in California, 3 radio stations in Florida, 3 radio stations in Pennsylvania, 2 in Nevada, 2 in Colorado, another station in Georgia, another station in Wisconsin. So can you talk about what's going on in those states, where their strengths and weaknesses are in these pillars you talk about?
Yeah, I'll definitely highlight one, Rick, if I may, on California, because I think there's obviously a lot of information that I could present. I'm conscious of time, so let me just give a bit of an overview, and hopefully that will whet the appetite for your listeners to look at the other states. But if we look at California, what actually we find is that California is the most improved state over the past decade. So it's moved up the rankings. It's moved up 9 places in the rankings. It was 35th. It now sits squarely in the middle of the table at 26th. And when we look across those 3 domains, open economies, inclusive societies, and empowered people, we see an interesting picture. We see actually on inclusive societies, it ranks 34th, but it's moved up 3 places. On open economies, that's where the biggest growth has occurred, actually, and it's moved up 12 places to 23rd in the rankings. And when we look at open economies, the 2 areas of particular strength for California are the economic quality pillar, and that looks at things like, as I talked about already, the fiscal sustainability. It looks at productivity and competitiveness. It also looks at the kind of labor force engagement, so the extent to which people are engaged, actively engaged. So it looks at unemployment, both adult and youth, but also employee engagement, underemployment. And we see that that's where California has seen great strides. It's moved up 27 places in the rankings, and it now ranks 5th out of all the states. And again, it's done particularly well on its fiscal sustainability. It's got rid of its negative state balance, and its state reserves have also been considerably strengthened over the past decade.
Shaun, if I could ask you, California is one of the states, along with New Jersey, along with New York, where the governor has continued to shut the state down. Okay. What effect do you think it's going to have on the index moving forward?
Well, I think if we look at, if you go to one of the pillars that we capture in the index is governance as well. So you can see how the state is governed. But one of the things that's really interesting that you say that, because one of the things that we do see is that there is a high degree of regulation in the state. In fact, it ranks quite low, in terms of regulation, and particularly around sort of occupational licensing. And we see that in the index is actually a bit of a barrier to improved economic activity. You need some, but it has to be balanced. Otherwise, it can be a barrier to economic growth. So that is definitely one area that we would see that California could look to strengthen. But it also does really well for dynamism. That's measuring the state of startups, rate of new entrepreneurs, number of patents, those kind of things. It actually does well on those.
Well, Shaun, we also hear about the number of businesses exiting from California. Yeah. That's also got to have a negative effect on the state's economy, doesn't it?
Well, I think to your point, one of the things we see, Rick, is that the state actually is one of the best for attracting venture capital and direct investment. A lot of money flows into the state. But obviously, if you're on the other side of the equation, if you've got high regulation, if you've got barriers like occupational licensing, then that can act as a barrier to growth. And so you could see as a result that firms up and move to somewhere else where there's less barriers.
Shaun, we have to take a quick break. I'm hoping you could stay with us to the next segment. I know my co-host Rick Manning wants to get into this conversation. And you are listening to and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning. Rick is the president of Americans for Limited Government, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And our guest this segment is Shaun Flanagan. Shaun is the director of the Center for Matrix at the Legatham Institute in London, England. We're talking about America's post-COVID prosperity. Don't go away. We'll be right back with our guest.
Mom, thank God you're going to be okay.
So relieved. But you both should know when my time comes, I have a final expense policy with Senior Care USA.
Is Senior Care USA the life insurance policy that helps loved ones pay for funeral expenses and other debts? Bill and I called to get more information.
Yes, and there's an immediate payout of up to $50,000.
If you're over 50, call Senior Care USA now to learn more about final expense insurance plans.
There's no medical exam, even if you have a pre-existing condition like I do. When I called, the quote was free, and there was no pressure.
I found out that policies start for as little as 35 cents a day. Rates will never increase and coverage won't decrease.
I'm going to call today.
Ask about the free prescription discount card. Oh, I'm so glad you'll be taken care of.
Call 1-800-822-7419. That's 1-800-822-7419.
But is it? It's really just the beginning, right? Have you written a book and want it published but don't know where to start? You're not alone. Page Publishing cuts through the confusion that most new authors face, like copyright protection, barcodes, printing, and digital uploading. We will get your book into bookstores now. We guide you through the publishing maze and help you distribute and sell your work in hard copy and ebook formats. That's right. We will digitize and place your book for sale on Amazon, Apple iBooks, and Google, offering it to millions. Don't waste another minute. Most publishers won't even look at new author submissions, but we're different. We review your book and provide you feedback in about a week. If we decide to publish your book, your work ends and ours begins. From copy editing and proofing to typesetting and book cover art, our team gets you into bookstores fast.
Call 1-877-461-5033.
Does your current bathroom need to be updated immediately? Introducing One Day Bath and Shower Remodeling, the complete and hassle-free way to get the new bathroom of your dreams in as little as 1 day and for as little as $1.99 a month. Yes, the experts at One Day Bath and Shower Remodeling will come to you anywhere in the country and show you all the customized options. Now you can have a brand new bathroom in as little as 1 day. Large or small bathrooms, if you want a new bathtub or shower installed, we can do it in as little as 1 day. And if you call right now, you can save $750 off your remodel. We make it easy by offering you financing as low as $199 per month. So for as little as $199 a month, you can finally have the bathroom of your dreams. Call now to schedule your free in-home consultation.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning and yours truly, Rick Trader. And I wanted to give a shout out to the folks who are listening to us on stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder in Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California, Arlington, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and also seen on the 7 stations of the AUN television network in California, places like San Francisco, Sacramento, San Jose, Santa Rosa, Redding. And our guest this segment is Shaun Flanagan. He's the director for the Center of Matrix at the Legatham Institute in London, England, talking about America's post-COVID prosperity. Shaun, thank you for holding through that break. And on the other line, I do have my co-host, Rick Manning, and I know Rick wants to get into this conversation. Rick?
Yeah, Shaun, I'm really kind of intrigued by this because I'm looking at the Prosperity Index here, and some of the conclusions are somewhat surprising to me. But let me just go to the real, what we've been talking about in terms of COVID. We have the Center for Disease Control that has come out and been very clear that kids need to go back to school for their mental health. And yet states like California, which rank relatively, they're middle of the pack. But a lot of the states, Massachusetts, they're cracking down. How is in the post-COVID world, the index can be shaken up based upon mental health problems that are going to develop based on the extended shutdowns and the effect on people as it relates to suicides, as it relates to education, as it relates to opiate addictions and overdoses?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's great to be with you today as well. I think you raised some really good challenge there, and all of those things we capture within the index. So, what we will see, obviously, the index is a curation of 216 indicators, all publicly available, all US data sets from lots of bureaus of different government departments, ministries in the US, but also we use Gallup data. But we actually capture all of those things. So we will see those things beginning to come through in the index over time. And I'm sure as we move forward, we will see things like mental health. I mean, education is a really good one because actually, when we look at California, we see it. We sort of see two stories going on there. We see it's one of the strongest, higher education systems in the country, if not the world. But actually, when we look at other different aspects around primary education or K-12 and secondary, it actually doesn't do so well there. And one of the things we draw out in the report is we say, we would really like students in California to be able to compete, competitively for those places at higher education universities. But at the moment, they're being underserved by the education system, we believe, in California. So a lot of all that you've talked about is in the index. And as we go forward, we will see, I dare say, an impact on those states.
Now, and I will tell you, I was born and raised in California and lived the first 26 years of my life in California. And my parents and other relatives still live in California. Some have fled. So I pay pretty much close attention to what happens in the state. And one of the phenomena that we're seeing right now, and it kind of runs counter to what would be predicted by the model, is a lot of companies, including Silicon Valley companies, are moving to Texas because quite honestly, the less regulation, they don't have any income tax, whereas California has 13% state income tax. And so from a holistic perspective, you move to Austin, you still have the University of Texas Austin Educational Center, which is extraordinary, and you get away from a lot of the challenges that come with California and the somewhat repressive regulatory environment and tax environment. How does that reconcile with the overall kind of the prosperity index? How do you, when you see flows of people and flows of businesses going one way, how does this thing adapt to reconcile the reality on the ground versus what the academic report shows?
Yeah, so I mean, we do pick up in the index, as I was mentioning before the break, around heavy regulation and occupational licensing in California, which will be a barrier. And so it doesn't surprise me that you see businesses perhaps moving to other states. But I think it's also important to recognise that in those other states there are also challenges. And one of the things we talk about with Texas is that it's obviously, as you know, one of the largest states. It has a very, very strong economy, but when you look at the other elements of the index around inclusive societies and empowered people, it actually underperforms quite considerably in those particular areas, so around health and education. Now, obviously, when you get to places like Houston, Dallas, the large urban areas, that's probably less so, but some of the other areas of the state, and we've done this year for the first time a county level index for 8 selected states, one of which is California and the other which is Texas, as well as 6 others. So we unpack what we see at a state level, which is obviously huge, those averages, and then see how they translate into the individual counties. And we see some really interesting pictures.
I'm interested because inclusive has become a pretty politically charged word in the last, shall we say, 3 months. And I'm kind of interested in what that means. What does that mean in terms of the index?
Yeah, no, sure. I'm very conscious that, and that's, I think, one of the things that we've been very clear with the index is to try and, be very, very definitive on what we mean. So the index sort of lays out. So if we look at inclusive societies, that includes 4 pillars, and we talk about safety and security, we talk about personal freedom, we talk about governance, and we talk about social capital. So they're the 4 pillars within inclusive societies.
Okay, so and when you look at it, because looking at some of these different categories, I'm kind of surprised where people are ranked. Connecticut and Massachusetts being 1, 2 in personal freedom is a shock to somebody who recognizes that part of personal freedom is the right to self-protection, and those 2 states have some of the most restrictive laws relating to self-protection. So how do you define personal freedom in the index? And I'm not asking this to be critical. I'm just trying to understand the index.
No, absolutely. That's a great question. And so if you go to, I would talk you through them, but if you go to any of the profiles, we actually drill all the way down into. So if you imagine, maybe very quickly, it might be helpful. If you imagine the index is a bit like a pyramid, at the very top of the apex, you've got what is overall prosperity. Underneath that, you've got these 3 domains. Underneath that, you've got these 11 pillars. Underneath that, you've got what we call 48 policy-focused elements. So if you're looking at education there, we're looking at sort of pre-primary, we're looking at primary, secondary, tertiary, and adult skills. So they're intended to be sort of policy elements. And we would really like to see this index used by sort of policymakers. And then the final level, the lowest level of the pyramid, if you like, is 216 indicators. And so we've grouped those together into these policy-focused elements. So in personal freedom, what we're catching there is the first thing is agency. That sort of extent to which people have freedom to choose about their life and how they live, and they're not restricted, so they're not subject to coercion. So trafficking is one of the things we capture in there. We also look at freedom of association and speech, so people being able to, say things and things that are respected, but also the ability to assemble and to associate, public gatherings, those kind of things. Then we also capture the absence of legal discrimination. So we're making sure that sort of barriers have been taken down to prevent discrimination. And then the final thing we try and capture is almost like the lived experience through social tolerance. So there we're looking at, well, what is the tolerance for other groups in society? Are other groups sort of welcomed and received, or is there sort of hostility towards them? So all of those 4 things sort of encapsulate personal freedom.
Thanks for that explanation. I'd be interested to see how you consider California to have a lot of inclusion related to alternative ideas, since they essentially shut down conservative thought pretty aggressively there. But once again, these are all perspectives in terms of what those terms mean. When you look at this, what kind of policymakers do policymakers seek you out? Are they looking at this index? What kind of influence does it have on policymakers and how they view policies and actions that should be taken moving forward?
Well, that is a great question, and that's one of the things we're trying to build up traction around the index, because it's all open source. It's freely available. We believe it has real potential to help shape policy making in not just at state level, but also now at the county level, and those two working hand in hand. So we're keen to engage and talk to people. I feel like we, because we're non-partisan, we're on the other side of the pond. We sort of bring this humbly as a way of measuring. We don't have any hidden agendas, if you like, in this. And I'm conscious at the moment, when you're in a very politically charged year, even the wearing of face masks is I understand now, very politically charged in the US. And so we believe we have a sort of certain degree of impartiality on this. So we'd love to talk to you a bit more, or any others that other people who are listening are keen to engage with.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our present guest is Shaun Flanagan. He's the director of culture. He's the director of the Center for Metrics at the Legatham Institute in London, England. Shaun, we want to thank you for joining us. Could you please tell our audience how they could follow your work, learn more about what you guys do, and find more about the index, the United States Prosperity Index?
Yeah, I'm delighted to, Rick. So we have a fully open source website. Everything's freely available. If we go to www.usprosperity.net, there is a state profile for every state plus DC, and also a county profile for those 829 counties in the 8 selected states. And we'd love to hear from anyone who would like to sort of begin a conversation with us on using this.
Well, Shaun Flanagan, we appreciate your time. We want to thank you so much for joining us here on Conservative Commandos radio show. Take care and God bless.
Thank you very much, Rick.
And you are listening to and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Manning and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't you go away. Rick and I will be back with more right after this break.
Here's a great way to save money on your prescription medications. If you take Viagra or Cialis, we can give you a way to pay as little as $2 a pill. Compare that to prices as high as $60 per tablet. Call now with your prescription and pay as little as $2 a pill. We offer 24/7 service and always free delivery and confidential packaging. Call Pharmacy Shop 24/7 to get generic versions of Viagra or Cialis for as little as $2 a pill, plus free discreet shipping.
Broken AC, $4,600. Water heater, $1,500. Fridge on the fritz, $1,000.
You need home warranty coverage from the Home Service Club
for around $1 a day. If any of your covered appliances and systems break down, HSC will either repair or replace them.
HSC provides coverage of up to 47 different appliances and systems in your home.
I trust HSC.
HSC has over 15,000 pre-screened, highly rated technicians with the fastest response time in the industry.
They cover everything from ACs, stoves, fridges, pool pumps, and more.
Call the number on your screen now for a free no-obligation quote from a trusted HSC specialist about a home warranty for your entire home, backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call now and get 1 month free plus $75 off your first year of coverage. 1 month free and $75 off your first year. The Home Service Club.
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for dental visits. Did you?
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for transportation to my doctor. Did you?
I didn't know some Medicare Advantage plans may pay to have my prescriptions delivered directly to my home. Did you?
These and more are important benefits some Medicare Advantage plans may give you. So if you're eligible for Medicare, call us right now, because you may be eligible to enroll in a plan with amazing additional benefits. Some Medicare Advantage plans may pay for services like these: dental visits, vision coverage, hearing coverage, home delivery of drugs, even gym memberships. Some plans may include no copays for many services and zero deductibles. Don't wait to find out if you're eligible to enroll in a plan that may include some of these wonderful benefits you deserve. Call us right now. The call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation. Make this free call now to learn if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan that may include additional benefits you want. Call us right now.
Here's a great way to save money on your prescription medications. If you take Viagra or Cialis, we can give you a way to pay as little as $2 a pill. Compare that to prices as high as $60 per tablet. Call now with your prescription and pay as little as $2 a pill. We offer 24/7 service and always free delivery and confidential packaging. Call Pharmacy Shop 24/7 to get generic versions of Viagra or Cialis for as little as $2 a pill, plus free discreet shipping.
Well, Rick Manning, that just about wraps it up for today. I want to thank you for sitting in as my co-host. Sorry we couldn't get to see you, Rick, but we did find a really nice picture of you that we have up for our television audience. But Rick, for people who want to find out more about Americans for Limited Government and what y'all stand for and the work that you do, tell our audience where they can go. Nice.
Sure, first of all, I think you're... Yeah. First of all, Rick, I think the viewers are blessed by the fact that there's a nice picture, not just me. You got the picture rather than the real thing. But yeah, you go to getliberty.org. It's getliberty.org. We send out every single day information, cartoons, other things that take a different perspective than perhaps what you might read elsewhere. And it's free. Just go there, sign up, and every single day in your inbox, you will get some interesting information that I think you'll find it helps equip you for dealing with the world.
All right, Rick, again, that website?
GetLiberty.org.
GetLiberty.org. And Rick, I want to thank our guests. We had 3 terrific guests join us today. We had Trent England, who's the executive director of Save Our States, talking about breaking faith with the Electoral College. We also had George Parry. George is a contributor to the American Spectator, and we discussed an article he has up on American Spectator, The Disappeared Social Media Whack-A-Mole with America's Frontline Doctors. We also had Shaun Flanagan. Shaun is the director for the Center of Matrix at the Legatham Institute in London, England, talking about America's post-COVID prosperity. But for right now, we're out of time, and we got to run. We got to go. Take care, God bless, and we'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.